Well, thank you, JoAnn, for joining me. And today our special guest is Shelby Stobbe. And I met Shelby doing some online networking, and I said, "Oh my God, she'd be a great person to bring on our show." Um, I don't want to steal any of her thunder, but JoAnn, why don't you give us a quick introduction, and then we'll start.
Well, welcome everyone on this amazing cold sunny day. I am JoAnn Forrester, also known as the Empress of Biz, and Sal has promised that one day we will do an interview about how I got that title, famous or infamous. So I'm looking forward to Sal doing the interview. We talk business. Both Sal and I are small business owners. We sometimes come from two different points. He
Almost
buys
always.
he helps people buy and sell businesses. I'm on the side that, okay, you want to buy a business from my client, how much money am I going to get out of that other client? So it's always a little bit of a joust. And I have done business plans and have raised over $70 million for small businesses and loans. Currently, I'm president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement, and Sal has been a great supporter. And Sal, give a little more background about you so everybody knows how famous you are.
Well, I don't know about famous or infamous, but I am a business broker. I help people buy and sell businesses. Through the magic of the internet, I'm able to work with clients all over the US. I am one of the few brokers that will work with both buyers and sellers. And if anybody that's listening wants to even talk about buying or selling a business now or in the future, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so Sal, you met Shelby. Would you start the interview process?
Yeah. So, Shelby, we were talking about before we started recording, sort of your background. Um, but tell us a little bit about the business that you're running, the practice, the types of clients you can help, and also what motivated you to even start with this. Was it a lightning bolt out of the sky? Was it something that you had always thought about? How did you get motivated?
Yeah, well, I would say prior to this, kind of similar to JoAnn, kind of something we've wanted for a long time since childhood. And it always kind of been on my mind, entrepreneurship and reading business books of the sort. And yeah, so present day, I help businesses with marketing operations, the trail guide at InspiraTrail.
Okay.
Shelby, I want to ask a question. Did your parents own businesses?
Yeah, when they say it's hereditary, some folks in my family have been on that entrepreneurial path. Um, so I'd say maybe there's something to that.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah,
let me ask you very briefly: did they help you? Because I've seen this. Did they help you in the sense of, for example, if you needed an accountant, they say, "Oh, I use so and so. He's really good over there." If you needed somebody to help you with maybe just incorporating the business or the LLC, whatever, oh, go to this lawyer. He's very good. And beyond that, maybe just general business guidance, or did they kind of let you do your own thing?
I would say let me do my own thing, but in with some folks in particular, I would say they understood, and in some aspect that was an encouragement.
mm.
For you all, who would you say was your biggest encouragement
I can tell you
in
my
your
biggest.
business?
I can tell you my biggest discouragement. My family. My parents had been in business, but their parents had been in business. And my grandfather had owned a very successful trucking firm, and there had been the Depression, and he lost 14 trucks. They were down to one. So the family had been living very nicely and was put into severe straits. My mother's family, my mother's grandmother, her mother owned a hat shop, which was named after my mother and hat and high-end clothing. Came the Depression. I guess my grandfather had done the speculation in the stock market, and they lost everything. So when I said I was going to go into business, they were in shock, and they heavily tried to discourage me. And really, for the first couple of years, they were no support whatsoever. So that was very interesting for me. And my mother kept on trying to find jobs and or a husband for me. So that was not a good time, to be honest. So
Yeah. Well, I will say in my case, my parents were neither encouraging nor discouraging. They were sort of neutral on the idea. The people that were most encouraging, funny enough, and because I did this when I first started, I did this as a side gig or a side hustle. That's what you would call it now. Back then, we didn't even have those terms. You just kind of went off and did it, and we again didn't even have a particular word for it. But funny enough, my coworkers were very encouraging because a lot of them also had side businesses, side hustles. As a group, we were all very sort of entrepreneurial. So we would help each other, and frankly, if we even had to cover for each other at work or share resources, whatever, we would do that. We had very good camaraderie back then. And the other person that was very supportive, and I guess I was very lucky in that way. I didn't know it at the time. Uh, was my wife was very supportive because she, even though we both had our big corporate careers with Fortune 500 companies, she was also a big believer in sort of the side gig or the high side hustle, whatever you want to call it. So here's the only thing I'll say. At one point, we had two businesses running from our house. Okay. And except for the master bedroom, the two businesses were taking over the rest of the house. We had one room that was like a warehouse. We had one room that was like a business garage, not a car garage. Um, and anyway, she was okay with all that. So that I was lucky that way.
Uh, Shelby, you have, I was looking at your website, and you like to work with businesses with 50 employees or less. Is that your target market?
I typically work with, yeah, smaller businesses or even medium size too.
What marketing wise do you find the biggest problem that small business has?
Yeah, let's say a few different things could be, they want more visibility and to grow and scale, maybe even not very clear about how do we do this and how do we get to where we want to be. For both of you, who do you typically like to work with and why did you choose that specific audience?
Go ahead. You
I
want to go?
Go ahead, Sal.
No, I was going to say you go first. Ladies first.
I typically work with people who are going through growth stages. They have run into problems. Growth is exciting, enticing, and very, at times, scary, and it can drive you out of your business. I got involved. I have taught how to start your own business for over 20 years, but I was an entrepreneur. I had my fingers in 5 different partnerships, some good, some not. Some lost. One lost me a tremendous amount of money, and I was fascinated about having from my own experience, what happened when the growth just killed us. So I've been very successful with working with people, getting them out of trouble. Sometimes a bank calls me and says, we like this person, but we can't give them money. because the numbers are not right. There are situations we need you to go in and figure out what's going on. And I'll go in and I would go in and I would figure out what was going on. Sometimes they could be saved, sometimes they couldn't. So that is, I like to help people grow, and I do like to help them grow safely. And that's why I'm writing the book I have as the preliminary before you even think of opening the doors, the things you have to do, which no one is talking about.
Well, in my case, as a business broker, I work with what we call Main Street businesses and lower middle market. And of course, nothing is written in stone. Every situation is unique. But just to give you some ideas, these businesses typically have somewhere between 10 employees to 100 employees. They typically have, somewhere between $1 million in revenue for the year and 10 million. And then hopefully at least break even to about a million or two in profits. Um, the only other thing that I'll say to that in terms of the types of businesses that I deal with, and I say this half kidding, but I say it half seriously too, is I'm here to work with people that can't get a return phone call from the investment banker because their business is too small. Um, Unfortunately, that's the majority of businesses are too small to work with an investment banker, and that's where a business broker like myself can come in and help them. Which actually reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you. Um, because I had a big corporate career for 30 years before doing this, and I did get involved in some M&A work. And Shelby, I know you also had a corporate career, maybe more from the marketing side. Um, how did you have to adjust your mindset? How did you have to think about things differently and do things differently to work with these smaller businesses coming out of that sort of big business experience? Because at least for me, I know it was different. So I'm sure you had to make some adjustments.
Well, I've mainly been around small businesses, I would say, most of my life, or at least known people kind of all through my life that have had small businesses. So I've always kind of liked that size of business, and yeah, or even medium size too, kind of liking those sizes for business and working with them.
Yeah. But was it hard, like for example, because maybe they had the small business has less budget, less resources. Frankly, I hate to use this word, but less sophistication, right? I mean, was that a problem? Was that a challenge, or was that an opportunity?
I think one could look at it like an opportunity because maybe with a big, large corporation, they're more likely to have what they need in some sense, but maybe with smaller, medium size, there could be gaps that could maybe more easily be filled too. What are your guys' thoughts on, the small, medium size versus large corporations and your outlook on that?
Well, I mean, I'll go first this time since I sort of started that line of questioning. Um, so it is a little bit more difficult to deal with the smaller companies because a lot of times they don't have the budget, they don't have the cash flow. I mean, like I said, I ran two small companies at one point, and at one point even simultaneously with being an employee of a big Fortune 500 company. And what I remember very clearly is you always had this list of ideas that you wanted to implement to improve the business. Okay, whether it was some automation at whatever the automation was at that point in history, or marketing, or whatever. You always have your list of projects that you wanted to do. And you can even sort them in terms of importance, or I want to do this one first, this one second, this one third, whatever. And you could even say this is how much they're each going to cost, and then you have the money coming in, right? Because okay, the business is profitable, you got cash flow, excess cash flow coming in, whatever. But the list of projects was always way, way, way longer than the list of money coming in. And you could never sort of catch up. So that was a challenge. Um, but the flip side, the opportunity was that for a small business, anything you do can have a big impact. A single client can have a big impact. A single project can have a big impact. So it's by definition it's much easier to grow it because it's so small, and sometimes simple things can give you a lot of bang for the buck. So that was sort of the challenge. That was sort of the opportunity compared to the big business. And maybe the last one I'll say, and I'll turn it over to JoAnn, is um, you could make decisions virtually instantaneously, right? You didn't have to go through 10 layers of approval. You didn't have to put together fancy presentation. I mean, you just had to do enough numbers on your spreadsheet to convince yourself that this was the right decision, and then you just did it. So, anyway, JoAnn, I'll turn it over to you.
Good question. I had started out working for a large corporation. I was young, and then I got married, and after 6 years I quit. Then I went back to school and I finished, and then I always do things. I jumped into business with two other gentlemen, and we had large major contracts with consulting contracts with steel mills. I would get fired at least every 6 months and get hired back the next day because I would tell them what they didn't want to hear. And every time I got hired back, I'd think, I want a raise. I'd get it. Maybe $10, but I'd get it. I was working as a consultant. But during that time, economic times where you could just see it. You could just feel what was happening. And so my business partner, he had been in a family-owned business. In fact, they had been in business since 1910. So he had come up in a family-owned business, and the third generation at that time was owning the business. So he had a lot of smarts. He had a lot of feel for small business. And I was always a salesperson. I'd like go out and talk to people, and I just have a good feel what's going on. I can be in a business in 5 minutes and I can tell you what's the matter. I just know. We get in screaming fights because how do you know that? I know it. No, we have to do the profile. We have to do this. We have to do that. 9 times out of 10, I was right, but at least we proved it. You know. So that experience with large corporations, a lot of what else Sal says is true. You have to wait forever. With a small business owner, small things make all the difference in the world. And they're the ones that are putting their lives on the online, and they're the ones that will work ridiculous hours, and they're the ones that have the courage and to do it, and that fascinates me. And I'm not a good corporate person, never have been fired, rehired, I don't know how many times, but I did much better in small business, but they paid me, so I was happy. I don't know why they kept on rehiring me. So, when you start working with a client, how do you get your clients?
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's a variety of ways nowadays. I mean, of course, there's networking and social media and, a website and, a variety of, email and a variety of ways like that. Which I would say which ways of getting clients you all like to focus on the most? Say,
Well, what geographic area do you serve? Are you confined to a certain area?
yeah, I work with the US and Canada, so kind of that area of North America.
Mhm. Do you go on site, or do you do a lot of your stuff by, by things like Zoom or Let's Go to Meetings?
Yeah, mainly Google Meet so far.
Which where would you see yourself going? I always ask this of my client: if we're sitting here 5 years from now, what will have happened if everything went the way you want? What do you see for yourself?
Yeah. Well, so far I've just mainly been focusing working one-on-one with folks, but I'm also in the process of launching a more group-based program. So I'm excited too to see where that will go.
Shelby, let me ask you a question. Because JoAnn kind of alluded to this, and I want to get your perspective on this. So you kind of see two sides of a negotiation, right? One side is you need to acquire clients for your business and your practice, and there may be some negotiation there. And I'm sure that once you've acquired that client, maybe there's certain projects and there's certain initiatives that require you to maybe team up with that client or that customer to then negotiate with a third party to achieve a particular outcome on a particular project. Um, can you maybe give us a couple of strategies, a couple of techniques that you have learned to make you a more effective negotiator in either of those scenarios or both of those scenarios?
I would say in any type of business, knowing kind of the pain points for the potential client. Earlier, we had talked more about small business, kind of budget being an example for them, but also, knowing kind of what they need and kind of where they need to go. Like JoAnn coming in, kind of knowing what the folks need and kind of what's best for them in that way.
Yeah, that's interesting because I can tell you, I used to have sort of a similar experience when I did 30 years in electronics manufacturing, and I could walk into an electronics manufacturing facility, and before they even gave us a tour, at the very beginning of the tour, I could say to the other plant manager, I say, "Hey, I bet you have this problem, that problem, and that problem." And I remember they always looked at me surprised, like, "I haven't even given you the plant tour. You just got here. How do you know?" And it's, well, because I know there's certain problems that are sort of systemic or endemic to the industry. Nobody has really come up with a good solution for them. And of course, I'm thinking like, and if you told me you have a solution, let me know because I'm like copying it shamelessly. But I knew those were just problems that everybody struggled with.
I noticed that you have certain offerings on your website. Do you want to talk about them?
Sure, I could a little bit. Um, Kind of, I mentioned a little bit earlier about a one-on-one offering, kind of marketing operations focused and kind of customizing it best to the client, and could be a variety of things we work on with that, but also in the process of launching, a more group focused offering and to have some digital products. How about for you all? I'd love to learn a little bit more about the services that you offer too.
Jen, you want to go first?
Well, what I'm doing right now is concentrating on writing. And I don't take on many private clients now. Occasionally, if there's an emergency and then I get a phone call, I will work with that. I am working at developing my own product line of products and improving the line of products that we had developed over the years and offering them to a wider community. and I am president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement, which we are the publisher of the Women's Voices Hear Them Speak, and a number of seminars that highlight the women's achievements. So I have my foot in two camps: writing books, writing about history, and promoting women in history and around here currently. And well, I actually have, and then I'm writing about Ginger the cat, which she has, Ginger, the story of a rescue cat and her various adventures. And she's won an award, and she's available on Amazon. And we've written 3 books on that, and we're starting on the 4th. So it's a career change from it's not a career change. It's a broadening, allowing myself this time to not have to worry about business, because I don't, doing what I like to do. And it's been a joy to do that. So what about you, Sal?
Well, as I mentioned previously, I help people buy and sell businesses, and as I mentioned, I'm one of the few brokers, not the only one, but one of the few that represents buyers. So that's really what I'm focused on right now. Of course, within those two very big umbrellas, then there's a lot of subtopics, right? We started to talk about a little bit. Certainly, valuation is one. Whether you're trying to sell your business, you want to know what it could be worth, and that valuation process is a little bit of a science, a little bit of an art. And certainly, if you're buying it, you also want to know what that business is worth, and that also is a little bit of a science, a little bit of an art. Maybe the only other things that I'll add is, of course, there's a point in the process where you do this thing called due diligence, where you want to make sure that everything, all the numbers add up, everything that has been presented is the way it's been presented, everything is, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. But I also like to use that due diligence period not only to make sure that all those documents are in order and that there's nothing funny going on, but to also think about, especially if you're the buyer, how are you going to grow that business in the future? How are you going to take that business to the next level in the future? To me, that's part of the due diligence and sort of a more expansive view, right? Then of course, there's the negotiation components. That's to try to come up with an agreement that is beneficial for the seller, it's beneficial for the buyer, addresses all their issues, all the concerns, all their risks, and try to put the deal together that way. So, within the big umbrellas of buying or selling a business, there's a lot of subtopics, and not even to mention the emotional components, right? Both for the buyer and the seller, and even components like JoAnn was talking about. Is your family supportive on both sides? If you're the seller, is your family supportive of you selling the business and retiring? That's the typical case. And if you're on the buy side, is your family supportive of you maybe giving up a corporate job with a steady paycheck to now go run this business where there's a lot more risks, there could be a lot more rewards, there may be a lot more freedom, there's a lot of benefits. That's obviously why people are doing it. But again, there's risk there, right? We're not going to negate that or sweep that under the rug. So anyway, I hope that kind of answers the question and kind of gives you a little bit more of a fuller view.
Yeah, I think that we can wrap this up. Shelby, what is the best way to contact you? How would you like people to contact you?
Yeah, well, I'm on LinkedIn at my first name, Shelby, and last name, Stobbe, S-T-O, B as in boy, B as in boy, E, or also Shelby at InspiraTrail.com, my email.
And we'll make sure that gets listed on recording and that. Sal, do you want to do a wrap up?
Yeah, well, just want to say thank you for Shelby for joining us for this conversation, and for also asking some questions of us to kind of get the flip side to what you do, because we're all entrepreneurs, we're all business owners. We approach it maybe from different fields of expertise, different backgrounds, different interests. um like JoAnn said, she's got her sort of vision, her approach, her style, and a lot of times I'm on the other side of the table, but we like each other, we respect each other, we can work with each other, and now Shelby, we're adding you to the mix today, and thank you for being here with us, and sharing with us.
Yeah, and good luck with whatever you do, and good luck with your clients, and may they prosper under your guidance.
Thank you for having me today, Sal and JoAnn.
You're welcome.